Matt Armstrong's Bugatti rebuild has been going on for a long time. Long enough that most people thought it would never reach this point. A crashed, blacklisted Bugatti Chiron. Refused parts, refused support, refused recognition. Yet it's still here, still being worked on, still evolving, still inching closer to completion. And now, something huge is about to happen. Because while Matt is still waiting on critical parts from Bugatti to fully finish the rebuild, he's preparing for something nobody expected, a direct performance comparison. Matt Armstrong's rebuilt Bugatti Chiron versus a factory-spec Bugatti Chiron. Not in theory, not on paper, on a racetrack. Before we go any further, if you're following Matt Armstrong or just love insane hypercar builds, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You do not want to miss what's about to happen, and believe me, what's coming next changes everything. This isn't just another update. This is the biggest moment in the entire Bugatti rebuild saga so far. For months, you've watched Matt tear this car down, expose damage, replace components, fabricate solutions, search for alternatives when Bugatti refused to help. Every step has been documented, every setback has been public. And throughout this entire process, Bugatti's stance has never changed. They will not sell him parts. They will not approve the repair. They will not support the car. In Bugatti's eyes, this Chiron should never return to the road. Not because it can't be fixed, but because Bugatti doesn't control the fix. That single detail changes everything. When Matt began dismantling the car, he didn't just find broken pieces. He found part numbers, supplier markings, component origins. And over time, a pattern became impossible to ignore. Many parts inside a Bugatti Chiron are shared across the Volkswagen Group, Audi components, VW Group electronics, sensors and modules used in other high-end German cars, even safety systems, airbags. Not unique, Bugatti-only designs, but units sourced from the same suppliers used by Audi. Same design, same core hardware, different branding, which raises an uncomfortable question. If an airbag is safe enough inside an Audi, why would it suddenly be unsafe inside a Bugatti? Bugatti says their refusal to supply parts is about safety, but the evidence suggests something else: control. Bugatti doesn't just sell cars, they sell access. Access to buy, access to service, access to parts, access to approval. You don't truly own a Bugatti in the traditional sense. You're allowed to operate inside Bugatti's ecosystem. Matt Armstrong operates outside of it. That's why this rebuild matters. Because if Matt can rebuild and operate a Chiron without Bugatti's involvement, it proves the ecosystem isn't as absolute as they want it to be. Right now, Matt is still waiting for certain components before the rebuild can be considered fully complete. The car isn't finished. The story isn't over. But it's reached a stage where something important can be tested. Does it function like a real hypercar? Does it behave like a Bugatti should? Does it survive being pushed? That's what this upcoming track comparison is about. Not proving superiority, not claiming victory, but proving legitimacy. This test isn't about lap records. It isn't about drag races. It isn't about headlines. It's about one simple truth. Can a rebuilt, blacklisted, manufacturer-abandoned Bugatti still perform like a Bugatti? If Matt's rebuilt Chiron falls apart on track, critics will say, this is why you need factory support. They'll say this experiment went too far. They'll say independent rebuilding has limits, but if it runs, if it completes laps, if it shows stability, if it delivers performance in the same realm as a factory car, everything changes. Because that means a blacklisted Bugatti isn't automatically worthless. A crashed Bugatti isn't automatically dead. A rebuilt Bugatti can still be a Bugatti, even without factory blessing. On one side, a factory-spec Bugatti Chiron, built exactly as Bugatti intended, assembled by trained technicians, supported by the manufacturer, a rolling symbol of corporate perfection. On the other, Matt Armstrong's rebuilt Chiron, a car that has been torn apart and reassembled, a car that required problem-solving at every step, a car still waiting on certain factory parts, built with persistence instead of permission. Two identical platforms, two completely different paths, same track. Behind the scenes, the pressure is massive. Matt's team has no safety net, no official support, no direct access to factory engineers. Everything relies on preparation, data logging, inspection, experience. Every system is checked. Fluids, cooling, suspension geometry, brake temperatures, electrical stability. Because one failure at hypercar speeds isn't small, it's catastrophic. There are no minor mistakes at 250 miles per hour. As race day approaches, the mood shifts. The excitement is there, but so is quiet focus. No loud celebrations, no bold predictions, just careful planning and controlled confidence. This isn't about proving people wrong, it's about proving months of work meant something. When both cars roll onto the track, the weight of the moment is impossible to ignore. Cameras are rolling, engines are warming, tires are heating. This isn't entertainment, it's validation for months of work, for years of experience, for the idea that independent rebuilding is even possible at this level. Every corner becomes a test. Every braking zone becomes a verdict. Every straight becomes a question. Does the rebuilt car hold its line? Does it remain composed? Does it inspire confidence? These are the details that matter more than who crosses a line first. The outcome isn't about who wins, it's about what survives. If Matt Chiron completes the session without major issues, that alone is a statement. It means the rebuild is real. It means the engineering is sound. It means Bugatti's refusal didn't stop the car from existing. But beyond performance, there's something deeper happening. This challenge forces a conversation the industry has avoided for years. Who controls what happens after you buy a car? The brand or the owner? Bugatti believes it should be them. Matt Armstrong is quietly proving it might not be. This rebuild has become a symbol, not of rebellion, not of revenge, but of possibility, of curiosity, of what happens when someone refuses to accept that no is the final answer. Even more than performance, the rebuild is a lesson in patience, precision, and problem-solving. Every panel reshaped, every bolt torqued, every system calibrated represents countless hours of learning. It's a masterclass in how ingenuity can replace bureaucracy. It shows the world that a car doesn't need permission to exist. It needs vision, skill, and dedication. And this is why the story captivates not only car enthusiasts, but anyone who loves defying limits. It's not a rebuild, it's philosophy made mechanical. It's engineering tested against rules, expectations, and limitations. It's a reminder that ownership isn't just about payment, it's about responsibility, skill, and action. And this isn't the end of the story. Matt is still waiting on parts, still pushing the rebuild forward, still uncovering what's possible and what isn't. The final version of this car hasn't even been revealed yet. This track comparison is just a chapter, a crucial chapter, but not the conclusion. Because once this Bugatti is fully finished, once every missing component is installed, once every system is optimized, the conversation becomes even bigger, and the implications become even harder to ignore. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because the Bugatti rebuild saga isn't over. It's entering its most important chapter yet. The story is bigger than any car. It's about what ownership, freedom, and engineering truly mean.